Hello, and a warm welcome to our show, Love Athletics. In this program, we bring you the latest highlights from our sport with expert input from different continental areas. And we're delighted to have back as our guest French coach, statistician, journalist, and athletics lover, PJ Vazel.
Hello, Anna. I'm very happy to be back in Love Athletics program.
Thank you. It's really great to have you. So the last fortnight has been so intense, including the fabulous Paris Diamond League meeting, that we'll get straight to the point, reviewing the spectacular night at Charletti. So 2 world records and 1 world best performance were set in Paris. Now, Pierre-Jean, what a meeting that was. Certainly one of the best in history.
Certainly one of the best, with 2 world records and 1 world best. And that world best was very high standard. That to my record was a very old one set by Daniel Komen. And in the process, Ingebrigtsen not only broke that world best, but it also broke the European record at 3,000 meters. So, and many other spectacular battles and events and times and performances during that great evening at Charletti Stadium was amazing.
Now, definitely, as you say, the first of the world beating performances was Jakob Ingebrigtsen over 2 miles. And although the distance is not contested very often, Ingebrigtsen's excellent mark took 4 minutes 51 off the previous record belonging to Kenyan great Daniel Komen. For her part, the great Faith Kipyegon, double Olympic and world champion, had been chasing the 1500 world record for years and finally captured it in Florence, but she went one better in Paris, setting another world record over the 5,000, a distance she had not run for 8 years. Kipyegon clocked 14:05:20, defeating none other than the previous record holder, Ethiopia's Letsenbet Gidey, who still holds world records over 10,000, half marathon, and world best performance over 15K. As a week earlier in Firenze, the joy on Faith Kipyegon's face was a pleasure to behold. And the final world record came from Ethiopia's Lamecha Girma in the 3,000 meter steeplechase, as the Olympic and world silver medalist clocked 7:52:11 to take 1 minute 52 off the mark set by Saif Said Shaheen back in 2004. Now, Pierre-Jean, just 10 days before in Rabat, we were thinking that Sultan El Bakali would continue to reign supreme, but Lamecha had shown great improvements over the flat, including a world indoor 3,000 meter record in Liévin last February, so we should not be surprised by his feat over the steeplechase in Paris.
Yes, Girma is actually the fastest flat runner to do the obstacles. So, but steeplechase is not putting just barrier on a flat distance. It requires technique and tactics, and he put all together. And this 7:52 maybe won't last long. Who knows? Maybe Bakali can run even faster. But beyond the times, we are looking forward for a duel between those 2 athletes.
Exactly. It'll be interesting to see them competing against each other, latest in Budapest at the World Championships. So in addition to the world records and world best, 4 other world leads were set in Paris, including one, as you mentioned, over the 3,000 meters by Jakob Ingebrigtsen on his way to the 2 miles world best. Other than the records, the best performance of the meet came from Grant Holloway, who clocked 12.98, becoming the first athlete to legally dip under 13 seconds this year. Holloway now owns 6 of the 10 best performances of the season and has won all but one of his outdoor races this year after a full score indoors. Among the women, I think the most interesting race was the 400 meters, where there had been talk in the pre-event press conference of Sydney McLaughlin even attacking Marita Koch's world record. McLaughlin did go out very fast. She was ahead, as we see, of Marilady Paulino, and even ahead of Marita Koch's world record in the early part of the race. But she faded in the second half, where she was reeled in by the Dominican Olympic and world silver medalist, who clocked 49.12 to McLaughlin's 49.71, which was, however, a PB for the 400-meter record holder. Now, Pierre-Jean, do you think McLaughlin can really attack Marita Koch's fabulous 47.60 if she stays on the distance and acquires more experience?
It's difficult to say because I think first she will have to improve her 200 meter and to run some real sprint races, just like Marita Koch did actually. Even with a very fast start, we see that it's not enough to stay on pace until 200 meters or 300 meters for running sub 48. So it's giant steps, but we saw that she had the potential to run under 48 seconds last year, not only by her very fast 400 meter hurdles. We usually retrieve 2.5 seconds. So if she runs 50.6, maybe she can run 48 low, but also on her relay in Eugene with her ankle leg in 47.91. Maybe she will be able with a specific training. And I take this race as a training race, actually, and a specific advice by Bob Kersey. I believe that was actually a 300-meter time trial. And she didn't really care about the rest of the race. And that was a kind of time trial, and maybe she and her staff will decide what to do later on this season.
Thank you. Now, another interesting point from that race, heptathlete Anna Hall improved her PB over the distance, clocking 50.82 for yet another personal best. Now, Pierre-Jean, I think you counted 23 PBs this year alone for the multi-talented Hall.
Yes, that's amazing. That's maybe a kind of record in itself, 23, and we're still yet in June. But her range is impressive because if we compare a PB or SBs and put it on the national list of many countries, she would be a useful athlete or national champion in hurdles, high jump, 800 meters, 400 meter hurdles, 400, 200 meters. Even the throws, she's 14 meters. She would be in the top 10 of many countries. So her range is incredible, and her battle with Nafissatou Thiam will be one of the highlights, hopefully, in Budapest.
Definitely agree. I mean, in Firenze, she was third in the hurdles with 5 specialists behind her. So really, it will be great to see Nafi and Anna battling it out in Budapest. But let's talk more about Faith Kipyegon. So what a week she's had. Do you think that setting that first record in Firenze could have given her additional motivation in spite of the fatigue that she said she still felt in her legs?
She was running for so many years after this world record because she already had won everything you can hope, every gold medal at any kind of level, any age, any Olympic or world stage. She was only missing that world record. But she didn't sleep on her laurels, as we say in French, and she came back with this 5,000 meters. She's not a specialist of the event. contrary to Guidey. And also she mentioned she had some fatigue, but she kept the pace with the light. But what was stunning was her finish. She was able to go away and leave Guidey, and her last 200 meters was timed in 28 seconds, which is very fast. It's kind of a tactical race, actually. That's the kind of times we see in tactical races, but that's a world record. That means she can probably run under 14 minutes with a little faster pace and optimal pace for incredible ability. And also, it was still very hot that night. It was 26 degrees. So although we saw 2 world records and 1 world best, the conditions were not optimal because the middle distance runner prefer slightly cooler conditions.
No, definitely. And at the pre-meeting press conference, Kipyegon had said she would move up to the marathon one day. And I think her performance in Paris shows that she can become a great athlete also over the 42K.
Yes, we have many examples of athletes moving up, not only 10,000 meters or 5,000 meters, but real middle distance runners. We saw Mo Farah, and of course, Sifan Hassan recently won London Marathon in April, while she was recently a 15,000 world champion. So there's no limit in the range, and for sure we are looking forward to Kipyegon on the marathon. That would be extraordinary.
Absolutely. Now, Pierre-Jean, I think we need to discuss wavelight technology. Faith Kipyegon specifically said she focused on the green lights and tried to stay relaxed and enjoy the race. How big a help are the lights to middle and long distance athletes?
So the wavelight is, of course, a new technology, and we see that the splits are more even. The pace is more even. Although some athletes were known to have incredible accuracy in their splits, like Daniel Komen had. When we see his splits, he was always in the same tenth of second each lap. That was incredible. But now everybody can do it if they follow the right, if they follow the light. However, in the circuit, we know that the pacemakers cannot be replaced by the lights, because it gives a kind of fence against the air, and also it's more tangible. It's more, you can sense really the runner in front of you. But the light definitely help, and also it's a great addition for the public, because it materializes what is the world record and how far is the athletes behind or beyond that world record. So it's a great help, and it's very good for the show.
Thank you. Now, immediate good news for Faith Kipyegon, who received a state reception upon her return to Nairobi, plus a cash award of approximately 33,000 euros and a 3-bedroom flat. So well done, Faith. So, Pierre-Jean, what athlete impressed you the most in this fabulous night of athletics in Paris?
So I was expecting a lot from the 400-meter runners. So I went to the warm-up stadium and looked at how they prepared. And actually, all of them had very different preparation, and illustrates how in different training mode they are. For example, Paulino, who already broke her PB this year with sub 49 seconds, warmed up. It was almost a training workout. She did a lot of drills to prepare that race. Whereas at the same time, McLaughlin spent a lot of time on the physio table and only did a small shake-up of her legs with the spikes. And Nasser barely warmed up at all. She sat down on her phone and only woke up 3 times to do easy strides on the grass, but that was only 3 times. That's not a proper warm-up. So I think she really focusing on later on the season, and McLaughlin also. So we saw a race, an early season race, I think, and the results are still great. So I think it will be a fantastic season for this event, and especially in Budapest.
Thank you for the behind the scenes insight from Paris. It's always interesting. Now, in addition to the world records in Firenze and Paris, 2 area records were set in the last fortnight, both in the pole vault. On 2 June in Nashville, USA's Casey Lightfoot cleared 6 meters 07 to improve by 1 centimeter the US and NACAC record, which had belonged to Sam Kendricks since 2019. Lightfoot, whom we see here in a file photo, is now number 3 in the all-time lists, behind only 2 legendary athletes, Mondo Duplantis and Sergei Bubka. The American, who was 4th at the World Championships in Oregon, confirmed his form 8 days later in Bergen, Norway, where he cleared 6 meters. But he was beaten there on countback by the Philippines' John Ernest Obiena, who cleared the height on his first attempt, while Lightfoot needed a second. So 6 meters was an Asian record for the talented Filipino who joined the elite 6 meters club. Now, PJ, we were saying in Paris that some events like the high jump, long jump, even middle distances are in a phase of stagnation, but this is definitely not the case in the pole vault or in the men's shot put, where excellent marks are being recorded by a number of different athletes from different continental areas.
Yes, I would like to mention that Lightfoot did 6:06 at training before his American record, which is really unusual because pole vaulter usually don't try PBs at training, especially those heights. So that was very interesting to see that trial, and that he did even better in competition. So I think that those kind of things that break the ceilings for the athletes, try things that have never been done before. We see that a lot of new great performances are achieved in distance running or middle distance runnings. And we mentioned the wave light technology and the shoes, but those things don't help for the pole vault, where there are no innovation, or shot put, there's no innovation. Even the technique of rotational exists since 76, so it's not new. I believe that, of course, those technology helps. I'm not denying that, but there is an extra thing that we see on other events, which is the emulation and trying to push each other. I've seen that also firsthand in hammer throw, where the same guys are competing each other for almost a decade now, but only in the past 3 years, they have improved so much because they are seeing each other at training, and they push each other, and they see that 79 meters is not enough, so they should target 80, but 81 happens in competitions. So now they are looking for 82 and so on. And that's what happened in some disciplines. But some are stagnating, like high jump or long jump. And there's no real explanation other that it's a wave shape, sorry, a wave shape of performance that we can observe for 1.5 centuries now in the statistics. It comes and goes, and it seems that it's a kind of rule for the statistics.
Thank you. I totally agree on the emulation factor. I mean, high jump was very good when both Barshim and Bondarenko were in good shape, and they were pushing each other. And this also helps explain how one good athlete in a country can lead other athletes in that country in the same event to kind of believe in themselves and to go beyond their previous limits.
And the most famous illustration is the 4 minutes by Bannister, a barrier that resists to many assaults for years. And when Bannister broke it, suddenly everybody entered into that door.
Exactly. In their mind, now it was possible.
Yes.
Thank you, PJ. Now, the Bislett Games Oslo Diamond League meeting took place last night with 8 world leads. Great meeting. We will review this in full next week, but we'll just mention here 2 races which thrilled the home crowds. The best men's performance came from Karsten Warholm, who in his outdoor debut ran a sizzling 62.52, the 4th best ever performance, and worth over 1,300 points. The men's top race, however, because of the depth, was the 1500 with 8 runners under 3 minutes 30 and 3 area records set. European record for Jakob Ingebrigtsen with 3:27.96, improving his own mark from Tokyo 91. NACAC record for Jared Nuguse, 3:28.89, improving the mark by Bernard Lagat from 2005. And Oceania record for Ollie Hoare with 3:29.41. So that was also a brilliant meeting, and we'll talk about it next week. Now, the other notable event from the last fortnight was the NCAA Division I championships in Austin. Very good results were recorded, principally as expected in the sprints, but also in other disciplines, though winners were not always the pre-event favorites. And this was the case on the decathlon, where Germany's Leo Neugebauer defeated Kylie Garland, totaling 8,836 points over Garland's 8,630. The talented German thus moved into number 8 in the all-time list and beat the German record of superstar Jürgen Hinksen, a 3 times world record breaker, which had stood since 1986. Neugebauer, the 2017 World Under-18 bronze medalist, surpassed himself in Austin, setting 5 regular PBs in the 100, 400, pole vault, discus, and javelin, as well as 2 wind-assisted bests in the 110 hurdles and the long jump. Now, as expected, there was fast sprinting in Austin, though marks were at times wind-aided. The best overall sprint performance came from St. Lucia's Julian Alfred, who won both the 100 and 200 on the same day, with excellent, albeit wind-aided marks of 10.72 with a 2.4 tailwind and 21.73 with a 2.5 tailwind. And she added another victory in the 4x100, where she ran the first leg for Texas, who clocked a world-leading 41.55 in the heats and 41.60 in the final. Alfred has had an excellent year so far, winning 2 NCAA indoor titles in March over the 60 and the 200, and now the triple in Austin. She also has the world lead over 200 meters with 21.91 and is number 4 in the season's list over the 100 with 10.93. So it'll be interesting to see if she can carry the momentum onto the World Championships in August. Now, PJ, what do you think of the St. Lucia sprinter?
That's fantastic. She almost broke the world record indoors at 60 meters and also came very close at 200 meters. And those are very mythical world records by Irina Privalova and Merlin Hardy. So I think she was very unfortunate last year to be disqualified for a dodgy reaction time in semis at 100 meters, because I think she could have one of the medalists, really. I saw a great potential in her. and that kind of broke her momentum that year. But this year she came back in even stronger, and too bad that the wind is always too strong in USA this spring, because we don't really see her real times. She ran several 10.7 with too much wind. So hopefully she will race in the professional circuit this year. I don't know what's her plan, but she has a great coach by Eric Froel. And I believe she will be the next big thing in sprinting, the new generation of sprinters.
Yes, definitely very, very interesting athlete. Now, while Julian Alfred's titles were no surprise, other sprint races brought unexpected results. In the 400 meters, Ireland's Rashidat Adeleke took the NCAA crown in a PB and national record of 49.20 over pre-race favorite Britton Wilson, who ran 49.64 in the final after clocking 49.36 in the heats. And Wilson, who was also favored in the 400 hurdles, missed that title as well, finishing 7th in a race contested less than 30 minutes after the 400 flat. In the 100 meters, Courtney Lindsay won in 9.89 over new talents Godson Oke Ogenebrume of Nigeria with 9.90 and Sean Maswangani of South Africa. In the 200 meters, the win went to Nigeria's 2021 World Under-20 champion Udodi Unwuzurike in 19.84 over Courtney Lindsay with 19.86. Onwuzurike had clocked an excellent 19.76 in the heats, second only to Noah Lyles this year. In addition to the results above, there was an area under 20 record in the long jump, where 19-year-old Alyssa Jones placed second with 6 meters 86, a NACAC under 20 record. Now, PJ, what athlete impressed you the most at the NCAAs?
The athlete who impressed me the most is 19 years old Will Sumner, who won the 800 meters with 1.5 second margin, but he did so with a negative split. His final time was 1:44.26, but his last lap was 51:15, which is amazing, really world class, and it indicates that he could maybe run 1:42, because that's the kind of time that only Kip Keter could go on with such a fast final time. So he will turn 20 later this year, and I think it is the next big thing for 800-meter race.
Thank you. That's interesting. So let's go back to the global overview and look at world leads. Checking first those set in the Diamond League meetings in Firenze and Paris. So in Paris, Emmanuel Wagnoni 1:43.27 in the 800. Jakob Ingebrigtsen, as we saw, world best in the 2 miles and in passing a world lead in the 3,000. Mohamed Katir had set a world best in Florence over 5,000. Lamecha Girma world record in Paris, and Grant Holloway in the 110 hurdles in Paris. Among the women, also in Paris, Keely Hodgkinson, 1:55.77. 1,500, Faith Kipyegon, world record in Florence, world record over 5,000 a week later in Paris. In the 3,000 meter steeplechase, Sembo Almayu of Ethiopia had clocked 9:00.71 in Firenze, and in the hurdles in the same meet, 52.43 for Femke Boll. But numerous other world leads were set in the last 2 weeks in a variety of meetings around the globe. So we didn't have time to update the screens because obviously they don't have the 8 set in Oslo, so it should actually read 2 to 14 June, but well, we'll include Oslo in next week. So other outside Diamond League in Kingston, 19.67 for Noah Lyles. Mondo Duplantis in Hengelo, 6 meters 11. Casey Lightfoot, we mentioned his area record. In Turku, Jakub Vadlich, 89.51 meters in the javelin, and a world lead also in the 4x400 meters at the NCAAs by the Florida team. Among the women, Nikki Hills in Montesson, that was greatly improved in Oslo last night. And before that, Edina Jebitok had clocked for 22.85 in Bydgoszcz. Sifan Hassan in the pre-meet day in Hengelo was back over the 10,000 with 29 minutes 37.80. And in the high jump, Nikola Olislagers in Turku equaled Jaroslava Marucic's world lead of 2 meters 01. Triple jump, Yulimar Rojas in her first competition of the year. She did not compete indoors. 14.96 in Madrid. And as we saw, Texas with Julian Alfred in the first leg of the 4x100 meters in Austin with 41.55. However, not all world leads are top-level marks, so we will also continue to check the best results of the past fortnight. But as the season gets into full swing and performances improve, we've changed the cutoff from marks worth 1,230 points to 1,240 points. So among the men, top performances, of course, were the world record performances of Jakob Ingebrigtsen and Lamecha Girma, but there were also many other excellent results. So we were looking at NCAAs in the 100 meter. The fastest was PJ Austin with 9.89 in the heats on 7 June, then equaled by Courtney Lindsay in the final, and Godson Ogenebrume with 9.90. In the 200 meters, Noah Lyles, we mentioned 19.67 in Kingston, and Udodi Onwuzurike 19.76 in the semifinals of the NCAAs, plus 19.84 in the final against Courtney Lindsay's 19.86, while Terrence Jones of the Bahamas was third in an excellent 19.87. Over 3,000 meters, we mentioned the world lead in passing by Jakob Ingebrigtsen, as well as his world record over the 2 miles. Now, interesting result in Madrid on the 10-kilometer road race by Victor Kipruto Togom, who clocked 26.38, which makes him equal number 3 of all time. 3,000-meter world record, of course, by Lamecha Girma in Paris. Grant Holloway, we mentioned his sub-13 mark in Paris. And Grant has also had a fantastic series with 10.03 in Hengelo, 10.04 in Firenze, and before that, and on the same day in Osaka, 13.04 also by Japan's Shunsuke Izumiya. And in Paris, 13.09 for home boy Juste Kwau Mateya, which was a very good performance. Pole vault, as we saw, very dynamic with Mondo Duplantis 6.11, Casey Lightfoot 6.07, Ernest Obiena and Casey Lightfoot 6 meters, and Chris Nielsen with 5 meters 92. Triple jump in Florence, Andy Diaz-Hernandez had jumped 17.75. In the shot put in Bydgoszcz on 6 June, Tom Walsh came back above 22-20 meters with 22.22. In the discus, Daniel Stahl has finally started his season. So in Sollentuna in Sweden, he first threw 70.93 meters, second mark of the season behind Mikolas Alekna, just 7 centimeters behind. And then he confirmed with an excellent 70 meters 38 in Turku 2 days later. Decathlon, we mentioned Leo Neugebauer, and Kylie Garland improved his season's best to 8,630 meters in finishing second. Among the women, the most interesting marks came again. We don't have Oslo there yet, because in Oslo, Marie-Josée Talou ran a world-leading 10.75. But the new marks before Oslo were 10.78 by Sharika Jackson in Kingston and Marie-Josée Talou in Chorzów with 10.82. Julian Alfred, we mentioned, windy 21.73 at the NCAAs. In the 400, Marilady Paulino, 49.12 in Paris, and Rashidat Adeleke with 49.20 in Austin. 5,000 and 1,500 meters world record by Faith Kipyegon. Now, the Paris race in the 5,000 was also of a very high level, with Letzenbet Gidey clocking 14:07.94 and Ejgayo Taye clocking 14:13.31. Sifan Hassan we mentioned, and in the same race, Grace Loibak-Nawowuna ran 29:47.42, and Sigie Gebreselama ran 30:03.45. 3,000 meters steeplechase in Firenze. We mentioned the world lead by Sembo Almayu, and in the same race, very good mark also by Jacqueline Chepkoech of Kenya. Femke Boll in Firenze, 52.43 in the hurdles. In the discus, Valerie Allman was a little bit below her very best with 69.04. Brooke Anderson also continuing to win, but not with exceptional marks. So several under 20 and under 18 athletes also registered great performances over the past fortnight. Starting with the under 20, in the men, we have a performance which is not yet on the World Athletics list, but is confirmed by several US news outlets. Isamade Asinga ran 10.02, regular 10.02 on 10 June in Monteverde, which brings him to number 9 in the all-time under 20 lists. And he is, of course, number 5 in the all-time lists over the 100 meters. Plus, Isamade also has a windy 9.83, also in Monteverde in the final, while his 10.02 was clocked in the heats. And Asinga is now chosen to compete among his different nationalities. He's chosen to compete for Suriname. In the 800 meters, Emmanuel Wagnoni's 1:43.27 in Paris is number 6 on the under 20 all-time lists. Another mark which is not yet on the World Athletics list, in the pole vault, Matvey Volkov cleared 5 meters 71 on 12 June, which makes him equal 9th on the under 20 all-time lists. Among the women, in the 100 meters, Shanti Jackson of the US ran 10.89 in Nashville, which is the equal 4th under 20 performance of all time. Sembo Almayo, we saw in Firenze. Now that is the number 2 under 20 mark of all time. In the high jump in Paris, Angelina Topic had been battling to clear 1.97 for some time, and she did it in Paris and is now number 9 on the under 20 all-time list, while Alyssa Jones, we mentioned, with her NACAC record in the long jump with 8 meters 86. Now, among the under 18s, there were no results in the last fortnight to make the top 10 of all time, so we exceptionally extended the cutoff to 11th place, and we have one performance there in the javelin throw by Rebecca Nellimarka of Finland, who threw 59.98 with the 500 grams implement and is now number 11 under 18 of all time. But let's move now off the stadia and the roads and onto mountain and trail running. The championships were held from 6 to 10 June in Innsbruck-Stubai, Austria. In the men's vertical uphill race over 7.1 kilometers and with over 1,000 meters in altitude gain, Patrick Kipengeno, leading from the start, finished with 1 meter 30 ahead of his rivals to repeat his success from last year when he had become the first Kenyan man to win mountain running world championships. Kipengeno also placed 5th in the classic up and down race, which was won by Uganda's Leonard Chemutai, who was the under 20 winner from last year. And Chemutai confirmed his country's strong position in the men's classic race. But the most emotional victory was that of Austrian mountain running legend Andrea Mayer, who, aged 43, won her 7th individual gold medal in World Mountain Running Championships and on home soil, renewing with victory after her last title in 2017. The USA's Grayson Murphy was the only athlete to win 2 medals, taking bronze in the women's vertical race before triumphing in the classic event 3 days later, regaining her repeating her 2019 success as a debutante. Trail races were dominated by France, the only country to take more than 1 individual gold, who took double gold in the long trail 85-kilometer race with Benjamin Robiol and Marion Delépierre, as well as another victory in the women's 45K short trail with Clémentine Gaufret, and winning the men's team event in all 3 races. Delépierre, who is not a professional athlete but a doctor, was particularly pleased with her result after 7th place last year. In the magnificent setting in Innsbruck-Stubai, other individual medals went to Norway's Stian Hovind Angermund in the 45K short trail, the only athlete other than Kipengeno to defend his 2022 title. Uganda's James Kirwa in the men's classic under 20 race, and Great Britain's Rebecca Flaherty in the women's classic under 20 race, the only race with an all-European podium. PJ, do you follow mountain running at all? Now, the rise of African athletes, I think Uganda has been there for some years now, Kenya. I think it's really interesting.
I think there is a globalization of these events, a little like road running in the 80s when Africa started to get interested in those events. They were, of course, on the track, but in the 80s, Kenya started to train for marathon. We can cite Wakiuru training in Japan, for example. But then in the 90s, it really became more and more an African event with Kenya and Ethiopia. And later on, women also from those countries started to take over. And now those countries win 90% of those races. It's not the case yet for the mountain events or the trail events, but I believe that the same path will happen with the globalization and the professionalization of these events, and the money incentive will attract more and more countries. And I'm sorry, but I don't believe France will still be on the top medal list in the coming years.
Okay, so let's take a look at the medal table. As we said, France, 3 individual victories and 3 team goals. So in first place with a total of 11 medals, followed by Kenya, Great Britain and Uganda. Uganda had topped the medal table last year. They slipped to 4th. Switzerland, USA and Austria all have 1 individual gold medal, as does Norway. Italy, who used to be one of the powerhouses of the sport, is only 9th, having won just 1 individual silver in the men's long trail, 2 individual bronze medals, as well as 7 minor team medals. Let's move now outside of competition with more sad news, unfortunately, as several protagonists of the world of athletics have left us. US sprinter Jim Hines passed away on 3 June, aged 76. Hines had a short but intense career and is best known for being the first man to dip under 10 seconds in the 100 meters, both with hand timing and with electronic timing. So he was already a silver in 1965 at the US Championships over 200 meters. In 1966, he took gold at the US Championships. The following years, gold over the 100 yards. And in 1968, he won the 100 meter at the US Championships in a world record, before going on to win gold again in a world record at the Olympic Games, both in the 100 meter and in the 4x100 relay. So Hines equaled the 100 yards world record in May 1967 with 9.1. Then he equaled the 100 meter world record with 10 flat, broke it in June 1968 with 9.9 hand timed, which was timed at 10.03 manual, to become the first man to officially break 10 seconds. He then equaled the 100 meter world record at the Olympic Games, again with 9.99, but the electronic timing here was 9.95. So when electronic timing became the only one ratified, he was the first on the list, and he was therefore the first athlete to break 10 seconds with electronic timing. Now, it's interesting to see that his world record of 9.95 lasted for 15 years, longer than any 100 meter world record in the electronic area. Now, we need to remember that Bolt's records set in Berlin in 2009 turn 15 next year. After the Olympic Games, Jim Hines retired from athletics and played American football with the Miami Dolphins for 2 years. He later became a social worker, helping disadvantaged youth in inner city Houston. Rest in peace, Jim Hines. Long jumper Klaus Beer passed away on 8 June, aged 80. Beer competed for East Germany and is best known for finishing second to Bob Beamon in the 1968 Olympic Games. Other than his silver at the Mexico City Olympics, Beer had been seventh in 1962 at the European Championships, fourth in 1969. He had a silver medal at the Euro Indoors in 1970 and was seventh in 1972. Now, Klaus had two children who were also top-level athletes. Heptathlete Peggy Beer, she was top 8 at the Olympics in 92 and the World Championships in 91. She was gold at the European Under-20 Championships in 87 and bronze at the European Senior Championships in 93. And long jumper Ron Beer was also an outstanding junior, as he was gold in the European Under-20 Championships in 83. After hanging up his spikes, Beer coached German long jumpers, including Kofi Amoa-Pra, who was a finalist at the 2000 Olympics. Rest in peace, Klaus Beer. And finally, U.S. sprinter and renowned coach Harvey Glance passed away on 12 June, aged 66, after suffering a heart attack. Glance had a standout year in 1976, but continued to compete and win major titles until 1987. At the Olympics, he won gold in the 4x100 relay and was fourth in the 100. Now, he'd had a fabulous year in 1976, first winning gold at the NCAA Indoors over 60 meters, gold in the 100 and 200 meters outdoor. Then the following year, he again won gold in the NCAA championships over the 100 meters. But he continued to excel. He was gold in the relay at the World Cup in 1985 and the World Championships in 1987, and also won several medals at the Pan Am Games, individual silver in 1979 in the 100 meters, plus gold in the relay in 1979 and gold in the relay in 1987. Glance equaled the 100-meter world record of 9.9 twice in 1976 with hand timing. And that same year, he also set two under-20 world records with 10.12 and then 10.11 with automatic timing. Glance was also a good long jumper with a PB of 7.87. In 1988, he became a liaison for the U.S. Olympic team, vice president of USA Track and Field, president of the Athletes Advisory Committee, and was a member of the U.S. Olympic Committee's board of directors. He then started coaching at his alma mater, Auburn University, and was their head coach for 6 years before moving to the University of Alabama from 1977 to 2011. During this time, he also coached U.S. teams at various international competitions between 1994 and 2009. After concluding his coaching career in 2011, Harvey Glance continued as personal coach to Grenada's 400-meter star, Kirani James, whom he led to World Championship gold in 2011 and Olympic gold in 2012, plus Olympic silver in 2016, bronze in 2021, and World Championships bronze in 2015, and silver in 2022. Although our paths had crossed on many occasions from the World Championships in Rome 87 on, it is as coach to Kirani that I had the pleasure of meeting Harvey Glance, and he was a truly wonderful person. I read a quote from his university coach, Mel Rosen, who said, "Harvey's what I call world class, as an athlete and as a man. I can't think of a better way to express it. We will really miss you, Harvey. May you rest in peace. PJ, do you have anything to share about the athletes?
What amazed me is, for example, Jim Hines did all this while he was only barely 22 years old and then retired. We can only imagine what his career would have been if he had continued to Munich 72 or maybe Montreal 76, running sub 10, although it was altitude, but he did 10:03 on dirt track at 21 at AAU championships earlier that year in 68. And this time is incredible, especially by someone who didn't have those spikes and those tracks and this fancy training. So these athletes really stay very up high on the world all-time list if we mitigate all the conditions that they didn't have back then.
Thank you, PJ. That's very, very true. So let's look now at upcoming events as we reach the end of our show. So tomorrow we have the Quartane Games in Finland, World Continental Tour Bronze. Saturday and Sunday, Ratingen Mehrkampf meeting, decathlon, World Combined Events Gold in Germany. Then several Continental Tour Silver meets on Sunday, Fly Olympia in Greece, Czesław Cybulski Memorial in Poznań, and meeting Stanislas Nancy in Tomblaine, France. From the 20th to 24th of June, we have the Arab Championships in Rabat. 22 to 24 June, Kenyan Championships. And on 23 to 25 June, European Athletics Team Championships, Division 1 in Chorzów, Poland. 2 Continental Tour Gold meets. The first on 24 June, USA TF New York City Grand Prix. And on 27 June, the Golden Spike in Ostrava. And then on 30 June, the next Diamond League meeting, Atletissima in Lausanne. So we're now at the end of our program. It was great having Pierre-Jean with us on the show.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And it's always great to have a review of everything that happened because it's difficult to follow everything.
And it all goes so fast. I had to cut out a lot of really interesting marks from the fortnight. Now we're on a weekly schedule, so we should be able to speak a little bit more. So thank you very much, PJ. Thank you all for watching, and see you next week on Love Athletics to look together at the comments, highlights, and analysis of what's been happening in our sport over the past week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.